Hello folks and welcome to another F1 Manager 2022 stream. My name's Steve James, as it's conveniently saying along the bottom of the screen there. And yeah, you're joining us for another quick chat about some interesting gameplay features. I'm joined here by Chris Groves.
Hello. Hello,
Yes.
Steve. How you doing, mate?
Hello. Yes, I'm all right. We've been sat here talking, so I'm pretty good. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm still good.
Yeah.
How are you?
It's yeah, I'm good. I'm really looking forward to this one because obviously it's a big part of kind of a wider announcement we've been doing recently about sort of ratings in F1 Manager 2022 and how that all kind of plays into the game and factors in around like development and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm hyped for this one.
Good.
Yeah, really excited. But I'm more excited because we have
another guest. Yes. We are also joined by a very special guest. Yes, we are also joined by
Carlos.
Carlos.
Lopes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Carlos Lopes. Hello. How
Hello.
you doing?
Yeah, good to be here. It's a pleasure to be in this what I think has become a mythical room in the in the history of Frontier.
the F1 cave.
The F1 cave. Yeah. Our meme den.
Properly decorated as well.
Yeah.
Which I really like.
Yeah.
No, it's really good to be here. I think it's going to be an interesting discussion. It's obviously a very interesting part of the game. It's a main kind of feature that people like. So yeah, it's really good to be here with you guys.
Should we ask, should we give an overview to everybody joining the show, what do you do here at Frontier and kind of what do you take control of when it comes to F1 Manager 2022?
Sure. So I'm a senior data designer, so I joined back in 2020, so fairly recent, long enough to do some work on this. So it's been mainly gathering data. There's been a lot of data gathering, I can say that, but also a bit of programming. So basically just making sure that the game was as data-driven and as authentic as we could make it. So everything to do with, let's think about node speeds, trajectories in the race sim, making sure those were replicating real-life behaviors. Obviously the latest one was driver ratings, which is what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah. Perfect person to talk to.
Lovely segue there from Carlos as well. So I think now I've got one good segue, you've done one good segue.
Probably, maybe not.
And now Carlos has done one good segue, so that's fantastic.
Segues, so
Perfect for me to give you guys an idea of what we're going to be doing on this stream. So as you may have guessed from the title and what we've been talking about, we've been revealing our driver ratings over the last couple of days, and today's stream is really to kind of go over those in a little bit more detail and give you guys a little bit of insight into some development interest as well in terms of how you're gonna develop your drivers, because those driver ratings aren't fixed. It's all going to change over a season as a driver develops. So we're going to give you a little bit more insight into that. We're going to discuss what all those stats mean, and yeah, we're going to have Aarava.
We've got another special guest.
We have another special guest. Yes, again, you may have noticed from our title and stuff, we are joined by Aarava later on from Quadrant fame, who's going to be having a little chat with us as well. So should we get into it?
Yeah, I guess maybe a bit of a recap as well.
Yes.
This live stream today is kind of part of a wider kind of event we're doing through this week, which began yesterday. So yeah, yesterday across our F1 Manager 2022 channels, we revealed the starting overall ratings for every single real-world driver in F1 Manager 2022, which is a huge thing always. Whenever it comes to games like this, the overall ratings, the big ratings, that's always a huge discussion point. We've seen that over the last 24 hours. It's been really cool just seeing everybody like, this is right, this is wrong, this should be higher, this should be lower. It's always going to be like that.
It's always spicy.
Yeah,
it's always spicy.
Absolutely. So yeah, we revealed those yesterday across all of our channels. Best place to go if you want to check them out is our website, www.f1manager.com. .com.
It is .com.
Yeah. I had a bit of a brain up there. Yeah. So head to our website. We can check it out. At the bottom, the latest news article, you can see a full list of every single driver. So that's the complete. All 20 drivers from the F1 grid, also a reserve driver for every single F1 team, and then also F2 and F3 drivers. So huge amount of drivers. The overall starting rating for all of them officially revealed, but as part of that article you see a really nice kind of deep dive on how ratings in the game work and how they will dynamically develop over time. You can check that out, but we're also going to go into detail on that during this show. So yeah, we're lined up, we're ready to go. We're gonna walk people through it. It's going to be good.
We are, yes. So let's get into it. Let's get the game up, and we'll have a quick look at some.
Yeah, let's bring the game up. Yeah.
So we are currently using Ferrari.
Yes.
That is our choice for today.
Yeah.
And yeah, we're going to be focusing pretty much. We're going to be looking at a lot of this menu, aren't we? We're going to be looking at the drivers.
That's true. Yeah.
And we're also going to have a look at the staff and stuff as well to kind of give you a deeper dive into those ratings.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's get into it.
So we have shown it in previous live streams, but there'll be a lot of people here who maybe have not seen the game before, maybe missed our last live stream. So we're basically, when you'll begin the game from sort of your home screen, your inbox over here on the left-hand side of the tabs, but your driver section in the game is where always you can go to check out your drivers, their stats, things like their contract, and anything like that that might be relevant to your team's drivers. And also, as you can see, there's the scout drivers area where you can look at the market of drivers to potentially scout, or maybe even try and approach and hire another driver. So yeah, we're going to start here, and you can see you got Charles and Carlos, obviously the two main drivers for Ferrari, but also the reserve driver. We mentioned a moment ago we have reserve drivers, and we have Antonio Giovinazzi as one of the drivers in the game. So maybe we'll use Antonio as kind of our guinea pig almost for this, to kind of show his ratings and how it all works.
Yeah.
Are we okay with that? Go Antonio? Fantastic.
Here we go.
So we have a bunch of statistics up here, but what we could probably do, Carlos, we have you. We can talk
we have
you
the
through
expert.
it. Do you want to tee him up maybe first, Steve, with a question?
Yes.
We've got a few ones to go
So
through.
obviously the main thing we've shown off at the moment is the overall ratings, but the overall ratings are really just the tip of the iceberg. There is a lot below below the water is the word I'm looking for. Yeah, below the surface.
Yeah, we'll go with that.
To unravel, and we've got them here. So you can see here we've got these performance ratings, and they're broken down into sort of 3 key elements.
Yeah.
So if you want, Carlos, can you just run us through what we've got here and why they're broken down into sort of pace, consistency, and racecraft? Those are kind of our 3 main pillars, if you will.
Yep.
So yeah, if you could just give us a little run through of these.
Sure, I can do. So yeah, we've decided to group 3 stats under each of their own topics. So as you can see at the top, you have pace, which includes cornering, braking, and reactions. So those 3 are very race sim specific. So they are constantly in use in some sessions more than others. So if you think about the race, and if you think about specific tracks as well, you'll have tracks with more corners, tracks with a bit less corners, like Monza.
Right.
Same with braking. So if you think again about Monza, there's quite heavy braking zones there. Not so much in other tracks like Hungaroring. So those race sim specific pace related stats do come into play quite a lot during the race sim. Same with reactions. On the second one, consistency.
Yeah.
They're not conditional. They also happen at all times during the event, during the session you're playing. But they do have different effects on the race sim. So accuracy roughly controls how in line the car stays with the optimal trajectory. So if you think of an optimal trajectory, which they usually try and do in qualifying, which is the full beans out lap they try to do.
The full beans mode.
Full beans mode. They try to go as quickly as you can, and obviously accuracy is really important for this in this aspect, in this context. Control. It's also very important, but it's a bit more specific to the race sessions, because what this does, as you can see on the white text, is the ability to prevent racing incidents. So it does have an effect on 3 out of 4 of the racing incidents that we do have in the game. So control basically makes sure that the driver doesn't do anything too crazy. Put it that way.
Yeah.
Smoothness, on the other hand, is effectively the tool that allows you to extend your stints, so go as long as you can. It's basically the stat that allows you to preserve your tires better, so reduces tire wear while you're racing. Obviously, as I said, control and smoothness probably are not as important in practice, I would say, because obviously in practice you have different targets from the race. Obviously in the race you want to reach the highest finishing position possible. In practice you have to basically try and hit those targets. Smoothness is actually a bit important for practice, not control not so much, but smoothness is, because it does give you some idea of how the tires are going to perform in the race.
Okay, so potentially, so using smoothness as an example, say we've said before in other live streams and other content, you can run in all practice sessions in the game, and doing so allows you to gather information and gather data about the car, about the track, and stuff like that. So essentially, if you're running in those practice sessions with a driver, so we can see here, for example, Antonio Giovinazzi, 87 out of 100 for smoothness. That's pretty good. That's a very high rating for smoothness. So does that basically mean that you are in a better position as a team principal running in practice sessions with a driver like Giovinazzi because he's very smooth and he's more likely to get good data, good lap times, hit targets? Is that basically right?
Yes, it depends on what your target is. If you want to really plan the strategy for, let's say, Sainz and Leclerc in this case, maybe you want to run them too, because then you get a very precise indication of how they're going to perform in the race with their smoothness stat and the strategy that you select for both of them. But it is true that with the targets that you have in practice, maybe having Giovinazzi allows you to go longer into a stint during practice, which then gives you more or quicker setup feedback. So in practice, that's one of the big things, setup feedback. It does contribute a lot to your confidence on the car. So yeah, that is a strategy that you can do, and it does help you in practice as well.
Awesome. Okay, so yeah, then we got the last few. So obviously this is the racecraft area. So we can see these ratings are related to the driver's ability to fight for positions and maintain raw pace in changing on-track conditions. That basically
correct. Yes. So these are the situation, like the conditional ones that I alluded to earlier. So these don't come into play every time during a session. So obviously overtaking and defending are pretty much exclusive to the race. In practice and qualifying, you wouldn't be using these ones as much. Adaptability, same thing, although adaptability will be quite useful in qualifying if it does rain. So adaptability kind of controls the two-way relationship between the dry track and the wet track, as well as how rubbered in the track is.
So we were out. So actually, we were recently at Silverstone. As a lot of viewers may know. So we were there for the British Grand Prix, and obviously the qualifying session on Saturday was mixed conditions to an extreme. At one point, it was throwing it down. When the sun was out, dries, enters, wet. So there were all kinds of options on the table. So basically, if there was a situation like that in the game where you've got a mixed conditions qualifying session, an adaptability rating for a driver gives them a very good chance of qualifying in a good position?
Yeah, exactly. Awesome. So it's when the track is in a changeable condition, precisely as I said. So when it's not really time for intermediates, but maybe too wet for dries, that kind of range is where this stat really comes into play. And it can make a big difference, particularly in the race. When those situations occur. Obviously, we do generate the weather, so we have a weather forecast for each race, which is fully dynamic. So yeah, this can happen anytime. Probably not in Bahrain and Abu Dhabi.
Yeah, sure.
It's highly unlikely for
it was 40 degrees yesterday, Carlos.
Exactly. Yeah.
Anything's game.
But this is exactly and that's why I think all these stats are quite interesting, because this is exactly what we expect the player to be able to interact with and to plan accordingly. So if I know I'm racing in Bahrain or Abu Dhabi, and I have, let's say, 1 or 2 development points to spend, maybe I don't want to go adaptability just now, because it's very unlikely it's going to rain or the track is going to change. The circuit surface is going to change too much during those 2 races. Whereas if I know that I'm going to be going to, let's say, Silverstone, Belgium, Hungary, and other tracks that might have a higher percentage chance of rain, then I might want to put my points into this, because this has quite a profound effect in the race sim, and it can be a big boost for those 3 races.
A very strategic element to the development side of things, which we'll get onto in a sec. But
so that kind of leads into the kind of driver development side of things quite nicely, and the kind of tactics there could be in terms of where are you making your drivers focus their skills and not their racecraft, because that's a topic here, but your general idea. So can you give us an idea of how driver development works in terms of not only the so we've got here at the top the development points, and we can clearly kind of help our drivers improve using those, but also give us a little idea of sort of ratings changing over time and stuff like that.
So yeah, it has quite a few things going into it. So one big thing you can see on screen is the experience. So experience is gained by completing sessions, completing laps in practice, qualifying in the race. Obviously the drivers have different levels of how much development they can make based on a few conditions. So you can see at the bottom growth potential, that's one that goes into it, the other one being age. So if you think, let's say, Theo Pourchaire, which is an F2 quite promising driver, against Alonso, you would probably expect Pourchaire to evolve a bit more, improve a bit more as the seasons go by. And that's kind of the logic behind this. So the experience level changes from driver to driver according to those patterns or specific attributes. Then, as I said, practice is quite a big thing here. So trying to complete all the targets that you have in practice, so getting that track familiarity, getting the car set up ready, does give you a big boost in terms of experience that you gain per session. Then the other big thing is HQ, so headquarters. So you have a few facilities that do contribute for this. One particular one being the simulator, which is the main thing that contributes to this. So yeah, there's quite a few things going into how drivers can earn experience, which then gets converted to development points that the player can add to or use to increase each of those stats, which go up to 100. So if you have, let's say if you don't use your development points straight away after a race and you accumulate points throughout, let's say, 13 races, theoretically you could get Giovinazzi to have 100 out of 100 of control or smoothness.
Throw it all onto one.
Exactly, because you are strategizing and planning and saving those development points. But it probably is, as a standard, as a default, it's a good strategy to just keep applying the development points as you earn them, because that's going to give you a more, a quicker evolution.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and we're having a couple of discussions with people on our channels over the last day or so, talking about the development aspect of things, and talking about how the development points are gathered and experience is gathered, and kind of talking about, is it just a case where, regardless of what you do, experience is just gained, and when you get a point, you add them on. That's not the case, is what you were saying there. It's about how in depth you go into practice sessions. It's how well the driver adapts to them, and how many laps you can get in, and then performance through the other sessions, and then also, as you said, there's the infrastructure around the driver at the team that can play a part too. So whether that's upgrading the simulator and refurbishing it to keep it, making sure it's performing at its best quality. So all those kind of things. It's not, basically what I'm saying is, it's not a simple case of everybody, regardless of what you do, you'll just earn experience the same way.
Exactly.
It's going to change depending on what you do as a player, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It's fully dynamic that way.
Yeah. So I guess sort of leaning into that bit, we have the facility bonuses stuff here. So yeah, here's the race simulator one as an example. So weekly experience gain is up 40%. So having a race simulator up at level 2, be basically and you can see its facility effects there. So if you were to upgrade your race simulator, that could potentially boost again that percentage you get, and then that creates more experience, therefore more development points, therefore improve your driver.
Yes,
pretty much.
Exactly. Yeah. Right. So you get a 40% bonus because you're on level 2. So working from the logic behind this, if you're at level 5, which is the maximum for a race simulator, you get a 100% increase on the XP you gain per session.
Right. Cool. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Awesome. Okay. So just in terms of, we've gone over the facilities and stuff. The regen drivers or the new gen drivers, are they going to have those ratings that dynamically change as well?
They will, and that is the case for start of game state and, as you said, regen. So we have a way of making sure that all drivers gain XP. So when you're controlling a team, this is based on the amount of work you put into practice, as we discussed, and how well your headquarters are maintained. For the drivers that are effectively inactive during the game, which are the F2 and F3 drivers, as well as the free agents and the reserve drivers if you don't use them in FP1, then there is a system that gives them XP as the season progresses. So they will be updating their stats dynamically according to those tools that we talked about before, so the growth potential as well as the age, and they evolve in different ways. So it does have an embedded system to make sure that it's not all static. So it's based on a few dice rolls that you might you might see Porsche gaining let's say 3 to 4 points across the season, just on those specific attributes that he has on growth potential and age. But it can be 1 point or 0 points or 7 points. It depends on how well the season goes for him on the background. The same is true for the free agents, which we have already in game.
Awesome.
Cool. I guess that's a reflection. That's a lot. There's a lot of detail, but that kind of fits on the whole kind of ethos of the game, of like the amount of authenticity and detail there is in the game in F1 Manager 2022, and also showing that aspect of it's not a linear thing. There's, like you said, there's dice rolls. There's a dice roll aspect to it at times, but there's also a player input aspect too, whether like running drivers in practice sessions. We had somebody in the chat just saying, we were looking at Giovinazzi, who's obviously a reserve driver, and asking, well, what in the game, what is the role of a reserve driver? How do they benefit? So in an FP1 session at any race weekend, you can put your reserve driver in.
Exactly.
So if you're very keen on developing your reserve driver, say Antonio, or if you're at Alpine, Oscar Piastri, or whoever you decide to put into that seat, if you put them in to, if you put them in FP1 sessions, that will boost the amount of experience they gain, therefore more points, therefore develop them a little bit faster, right?
Yes, and the boost is quite significant in FP1.
Right.
So if you do put them in, especially if you have a young driver, as you refer to as Piastri or Porsche or someone else, then it's quite an effective strategy to build up a driver that might take over a main driver's seat on the following season.
I mean, we're seeing that. I think I saw someone in the Nick De Vries is going to be in FP1 in Paul Ricard. So it's a regular thing that teams do in the real world, and you have the option to do that yourself in the game. Super cool.
Yeah. Should we have a look at staff as well?
Yeah.
There's some, because it's not just drivers that have got all sorts of deep menus behind them. There's also our very important staff team as well. So let's have a quick look at these as well, because we've got we've shown this before, haven't we? I think we've gone about as far as this, but I don't think we've gone into the next kind of level, because this game, you click a menu button and then there's another menu and then there's another menu and there's more numbers. So let's do that. Let's have a quick look.
Should we go on the technical chief?
Yeah, let's have a look at our technical chief, who is Enrico. I can't pronounce the surname.
Enrico, I'm going to go. Well, what would you? I don't
Cardile.
Cardile. All right, that's better.
Far better than
I'm not Italian, so I can't sign off.
You could have fooled me, Carlo.
That's fine.
Pronunciation.
You did better than me. Yeah.
Cool. So
I try.
Trust me, you're miles better than I can. So we're looking at the technical chief here. This is one of the key staff roles that is in every team that, as a team principal, you control. Same as drivers, you can handle the contracts. You can look to scout a new technical chief if you want to. But this is the starting technical chief for Ferrari, Enrico. So yeah, maybe just as we did kind of before with the other stats, you want to talk briefly around these different options that we have here?
Yeah. So at the very top, as you were just scrolling, the development points have kind of the same logic behind them. So as you complete sessions, as you complete races, they also gain development points based on age. So that you can see the experience on the bottom right, and that's exactly what it does. So you can apply development points as you gain them, same way as you do for the drivers. Then in this case, what the technical chief does, and this is similar for the head of aero, which we'll get to in a second.
Right.
So what they do is basically build your car. So the better they are at each of those, in this case 6 things they have to control, the better the new parts will be, and the less likely they are to fail or to not be as good as you wanted them to be. So we can see that Enrico Cardile, in this case, he's quite good at underfloor and suspension. It's probably quite a high rating compared to the other technical chiefs we have in game.
Okay.
So
technical chief. So then we got head of aerodynamics, which is one of the key staff roles you control. So as you just said, so it's similar. There are different aspects to it. Is there anything here you want maybe any sort of differential or anything you want to mention here? Or
it's everything to do with building car parts, as we said. So those are the specific bits on the car that you can build. So if you build the front wing, you can see that the high-speed downforce and medium-speed downforce and low-speed downforce ratings are quite high. So it's probably a good engineer to have, or a head of aerodynamics rather, to have if you want to build those parts, rear wing, front wing.
Right.
He's probably going to be quite efficient at building those.
So this is definitely something to keep in mind when you're developing and manufacturing car parts, right? Yeah. So you can refer back to your staff, so that's your head of aero, and say, okay, if we build this part, it should perform extremely well because this member of staff, this head of aero, has great stats for high speed downforce, medium speed. Right. Okay. So it's another factor to keep in mind as you build out.
Yes.
You build parts for your car.
So for example, if you start with a car that's really good at aerodynamics but not as good in cooling or DRS or any of the other chassis areas, then you might want to look into scouting, see what other heads of aerodynamics and technical chiefs there are in the market, and then compare their specific stats against each other, so you can plan ahead and say, okay, I need more aerodynamics or high-speed downforce. Maybe I'm going to get this head of aerodynamics because that's going to give me an immediate, boost to my car as I build my parts. So, it's that gameplay that exists there.
Awesome. Do you want to talk, Steve, maybe about race engineer with Carlos? Because obviously this is an interesting one.
They're more like a different one.
Yeah, and it's like they're more of like a public-facing, like more maybe fans might know the names and the faces of race engineers maybe a little bit more than the others.
I'd say so. Yeah, definitely. I think you certainly hear them, and you're certainly going to hear them when they're talking to their drivers in game as well. That's if you've seen our trailers. There's been a few clips of that as well. So we do have real-world radio from the drivers and engineers as well, which is really, really awesome. And I keep saying it, but that's the one thing for me that gives me goosebumps when I'm always like,
You're not the only one. When we were
Yeah.
at Silverstone, when we were doing when we were showing the game to folks, and they were playing as Alpine, and they'd have the headphones on. Might not have seen the trailers and not known that was the thing. Oh, that's their voice.
It's caught a few people off guard, but it's really cool. So yeah, as well as hearing them, a very big important part of F1, I would say at least, is as we've got here, our affinity between the race engineer and their driver. Obviously, a race engineer is exclusive to that driver. You know, over a weekend, they are focusing all of their time and attention on that driver. That's why there's 2 of them for each team. So let's talk a little bit about the affinity and sort of what that factors into and how that's important.
Yeah, absolutely. So the engineer, as you said, is a bit different from the other 2. So this has a more direct effect on the race sim, so on the race day dynamics. So as you can see from the screen, Charles Leclerc, the affinity is quite high because they have been paired for 156 weeks, which is quite a long time.
3 years, basically.
Yeah, 3 years. You can see that as well with and those are real numbers that we coded in. So you can see that, for example, for Pete Boddington and Hamilton, Lewis Hamilton at Mercedes, it's probably going to be even longer. And those, you can see that there is a dynamic between Leclerc and Sainz as well. So Sainz, he's probably been affiliated with Sainz in the past, but then that affinity is not very high because the time is less. So you can see that this has an effect on contracts as well, which is an interesting dynamic. So the drivers are less likely to accept a new contract if you change their engineer affiliation. So it does have an impact on that area. And then the other big thing is, as you said, all the dynamics in the race sim. So you can see pit crew management is one of the big things. So we looked into real life pit stop times, how the teams performed so far this year. And then we defined the ratings accordingly based on the engineer, their age, their experience, and their affinity with the drivers. Same for communication and feedback. Feedback having a particularly important role when you simulate practice sessions. That's an option. I would recommend playing all of them, of course.
Yes.
But if you are short for time and you want to simulate a practice session,
we know that
then
one.
Everyone's going to be calendar in August, September is going to be fully booked. But the feedback rating does control how quickly they progress through the sessions and how efficiently they achieve those targets that you have in practice. So this is quite important for that aspect. So there's quite a few dynamics here with the race engineers.
And you can see we talked earlier about Giovinazzi's smoothness helping him potentially in a practice session. That just goes to show is that if you do control a practice session, it's not just I'll run it and I'll get good stats regardless of what the situation is. It's all dynamic. It's all nuanced based on the infrastructure of your team. It's like if you ran an FP1 session potentially with Javier as the race engineer and Antonio as the driver, you could potentially get very good results because for great smoothness and good stats for Giovinazzi and great feedback communication for Javier. So it just shows that it's all dynamic, it's all kind of nuanced, all these different attributes play a part in the success of you as a team principal, and that's why the development points are very important, I guess, because that's how you can influence them, and it's all about making your team more successful. And it's very clear that using the development points for these stats is going to play a big part in that. So.
I think it's a nice or a really good overview of the actual hidden cogs in an F1 team as a machine. To have all of these things, and it's obviously it's a video game, so we still have to represent it in a video gamey way. But I think it's really cool to see all of that kind of follow. Can we see the facility bonuses here as well for our staff? Because these do have an effect on the staff as well as the drivers, don't they?
Yeah. So you got morale and team attractiveness. They're further memorabilia rooms, so morale obviously plays a big part too, and team hub is a key thing across a lot of areas of the game too. So we actually going to show it in a moment's time. So the latest feature focus
video. That could
video.
Have been an amazing segue in about 30 seconds, Chris.
I should have held it back. But yes, we're going to be showing a video when we take a quick break about some off-track areas of the game, which includes facilities. So you'll see these things we're talking here about facilities, kind of how they look in that area of the game and how you can build them up and upgrade and refurbish them. So so what we've seen here, we've seen loads of details about we went big yesterday on the ratings and the overall.
We did. We dumped a load of numbers at people. And here they are.
And it's always a big discussion point. So we wanted to have that moment, have that fun with people. But now this goes to show that we've got those ratings. They're interesting, and it's a big part of the game. But as you said, it's just the start, because you develop them, you can make these differences, and there's all these smaller attributes that make a genuine change to how a race weekend can play out. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
So yeah, I think that's a pretty decent overview. And it's not just for drivers; it's for staff, and it's for the fictional ones that enter the game over time.
Literally everywhere. There's numbers everywhere. if there's one thing you take away from this, it's that there is numbers everywhere.
It's a nod to authenticity as well, because it's a lot of moving parts and a lot of dynamics within the game as well. So yeah, it's F1 is an ever-changing sport, and so is our game. So yeah,
fantastic.
It is. Before we go to the break, I just want to answer a few questions.
Yeah.
Well, I say a few questions. I've wrote down a few notes.
Yeah.
Someone mentioned my socks. I just want to say thank you, because my socks,
very good.
socks are very lovely.
Yeah.
People were loving the music at the start of the stream. Yeah, that's you can expect more of that in the game. I think you'll like it.
Yeah.
And there was also one about we've seen it a few times, obviously, about the whether you can use a mouse and keyboard on controller.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to sort of, because we've been showing a lot of UI stuff here. So you can't use a mouse and keyboard on controller. You can't use a mouse and keyboard on controller, because that would be obscene.
None of them. You must play the game with your mind.
So you can use a controller on your console, but if you've ever played a Frontier game before, and you might see some screenshots on your relevant store as well of how it will kind of gives you a little hint of how it will work.
Yep.
But yeah, you'll see how that all kind of works out, and I think it's very well optimized. You know, you can
great
press
work
a button.
The team. Yeah, making sure that it works really nicely across any
to switch through. Yeah, exactly.
Cool.
Shall we? The segue's burned.
Sorry.
The segue's gone.
Yeah.
But we do have a second feature focus video that we shared with you. So if you haven't seen that, we're going to play that for you now, and then we'll be back with our very special guest, Aarava.
We say goodbye to Carlos. Thank you.
Goodbye, guys. It was a pleasure to be here.
Thank you very much. Your first live stream. How did it feel?
Yeah, good.
Yeah,
good.
Awesome. I think chat was very pleased to hear from you, and the expert on the numbers.
Absolutely.
So yeah, thank you very much for joining us,
I'm
Carlos.
so afraid of being called the expert now, because there is a face behind this.
That's it now.
It is a team effort. I have to say.
Of course.
There's a lot of people involved in this. So yeah.
Yeah.
The expert out of the three of us on this set is the summary.
I'll take that instead then. No, thanks guys. It was a pleasure.
All right, thank you, troops. Stay tuned for one moment, and we'll be back after this little video.
If you're standing still in Formula One, you're falling behind. All team bosses in F1 must find ways to constantly evolve and expand their operations, from improving facilities back at HQ to securing new sources of income. Investing in your team and providing your staff with an environment primed for success is vital in F1 Manager 2022.
The facilities you control are split across 3 areas: car development, staff, and operations. Each has a number of facilities that can be built and a running monthly cost. Car development facilities include buildings and tools that are paramount to designing an F1 car, from the design centre to your wind tunnel. Staff facilities, like a scouting department and a race simulator for drivers, affect employee performance. Operations facilities contribute to cash flow and team attractiveness via the likes of hospitality and tour centres. Every facility can be upgraded multiple times, boosting its effectiveness. Upgrading your design centre could increase your capacity for engineers, whilst improving your site's helipad can increase sponsor payouts. Refurbishing facilities will also be key, ensuring they're providing maximum benefit to your team. Do you invest heavily in staff facilities to maximise their potential, or put more budget towards car development and gain an advantage in part design? Your funds will decrease as a season goes on, so you will need to make tough decisions on where your money goes. Managing sponsorships will play a big role in keeping your finances in the black. The value of the sponsorship offers you receive will be dictated by the status of your team. At the start of a new season, you'll control the terms of your deals and obligations and adjust sponsor targets for each race weekend. Whilst this generates income, sponsor events can negatively affect areas of your team. It's up to you to find the balance of sourcing cash whilst not interfering too much with day-to-day operations. Looking after your budget will go a long way to keeping the board happy. Be ready for their mid-season and end-of-season reviews, where your performance will be assessed and targets will be set. Fail to hit them, and you may find yourself unemployed. When it comes to success in Formula One, progression away from the track is often as important as performance on it. Expand your operations, keep the revenue flowing, and impress the board to give yourself the best chance of glory in F1 Manager 2022.
Nothing happened. Don't worry about it, folks.
What I think just happened there is we overloaded Twitch with so many numbers and details
and
you know, interesting game information. They just went nope and died on us. Sorry about that, folks. Some technical difficulties, but we're back.
We're back. We are back. Yes. And you saw maybe half of a feature focus video that we put out on social media, but you can go and watch that on YouTube as well if you go on the F1 Manager YouTube, just in case you do want to see the end of that and hear the rest of Chris's fantastic explanation of the facilities and upgrades that you can do. But we were, just before that catastrophic event, we were going to be joined by a very special guest who is on the line.
Yes. Aarava, dialing in. Can you hear us, mate?
Hello, hello.
Yeah,
yes, I can.
Hello, mate.
Sorry about that. I must have tripped on my virtual way into the stream.
Yeah, that's it.
Pulled a cable on your way into the studio.
Yeah.
Oh, fantastic. Brilliant. Aarava, thank you so much for joining us, mate. I know who you are. I'm a huge fan of yours. It's cool to hook up with you again and chat about some F1 stuff. But if anybody might be unaware in the chat of who you are, could you just give us an overview, mate?
Well, clearly I'm a bad luck charm to the stream. So
Never coming on again, by the way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the perfect timing. But yeah, my name's Aarava. I've been doing YouTube for about 10 years now, so that makes me feel really quite old. F1 content, obviously, a lot of F1 gaming. Management games in the past, of course, with other racing management games, but this one will be the first licensed one in a long, long while, so very excited for that. But yeah, I do some, as was mentioned earlier, some stuff with Team Quadrant, which is Lando Norris's esports team as well. So yeah, you can find me on Aarava on pretty much every platform. But yeah, happy to be here and excited to talk about F1 Manager because, you know, I've been seeing a lot of stuff. I mean, just watched the stream earlier and it all looked rather nerdy, guys, which I love.
If that's one thing I think we can describe it as, it's rather nerdy.
Yeah.
I'm very happy with that description, actually.
Yeah.
I think, can we put that on the box? Rather nerdy?
There's a box quote.
That'll work, won't it?
We should also say, we mentioned it before, it's like if people are in the chat watching the game, whoa, that is a lot. When you start up the game, there will be like a tutorial kind of aspect to it. There will be like a fictional member of staff that joins you when you first start up the game to kind of give you a bit of guidance in certain areas and you know, that aspect of the game just to help you get to grips with everything around you. So don't worry if it all looks a little bit not overwhelming, but a little bit too much because you'll have lots of guidance in the early goings about how it all works. But yeah, cool. Right, back to Aarava. That's what I want to focus on.
Yes. So obviously, I imagine you've had a chance to have a look through some of the ratings. Have you kind of gone through everything? What do you think? Where are you?
Yeah, I mean, the debate is always, you know, a bit negligible. You know, everyone will want their favourite driver to be, you know, a certain rating higher or anything like that. I think I've been quite surprised how people have been quite obsessed with the F2 and F3 driver ratings as well. Like they're really getting.
Well, they're the future, aren't they? So.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, some of the future stars there. But like you guys showed on stream earlier, you know, you guys gave the overall ratings, but there's a lot more behind that. And I think actually as a player, long term, that's going to be the more interesting parts. You know, the individual settings about cornering or smoothness or overtaking. Because ultimately, you know, if you've got a great guy who's highly rated but can't overtake, then it's not going to be exactly great stuff. So I think looking into those smaller details can be quite interesting when the game launches, but overall, yeah, I mean, obviously, you know, I've got to say, I guess, you know, Lando maybe should be a couple of points higher. I've got to say that being the CEO, yeah, being my boss in many ways for Quadrant, so I've got to say he's probably deserved a few more points. But no, I mean, generally speaking, I think obviously very informed by data. You know, it's all driven by data, as been mentioned. You know, when I came to the HQ, you know, mentioned that you've got some people who used to work in Formula One now working at Frontier. So yeah, very, very plugged in. So I'm sure, the data, most of the time doesn't lie really. So I think people kind of get in a bunch. They can't really complain too much.
No, absolutely. Yeah, you mentioned the F2 and F3, the reaction to the F2 and F3. I think that's super cool. Is seeing the growth and the expansion of F1 and the knowledge of fans. It goes so deep now in terms of people talking about, Felipe Drugovich should be higher or something like that. So it's just cool that people know who Felipe Drugovich is. And because I watch F2 and it's been really cool watching the season unfold with Felipe and everybody like that. We've seen Enzo Fittipaldi wants his rating higher. Jake Hughes wants his rating higher. Richard Verschoor is very happy with his rating. I think he's 71 overall. I think he's very happy with it. So it's cool seeing whether it's it's fans or it's actually the drivers themselves. It's cool seeing those interactions. You mentioned, Aarava, that you've actually visited the HQ at some point. You've had a chance to actually check out the game earlier on, a little bit while back. But based on what you've played, what you've seen, what are your thoughts so far? Are you hyped now? We're just over a month until launch.
It is just over a month, isn't it? Blimey.
Yeah, I am very, very high. I think the biggest thing that blew me away was just the presentation of the whole game, like the UI, and then also the graphics when you get into the race. Being a management game, you can probably, forgive it for thinking like, oh, the graphics aren't going to be super higher end. You're going to be kind of stuck in menus all the time. Even other sports genres that have management games, the graphics maybe aren't insane. So, it's mostly about looking at the data and then kind of just hopefully seeing the result come through at the end. So to have that whole aspect of like, oh, I'm almost watching a race really. If I was to minimize all the menus on the bottom left and the bottom right for the drivers, it's like I'm watching a race. The real authentic presentation style, the actual fidelity of everything blew me away really. But obviously I shouldn't be too surprised because I think most Frontier games do look very, very pretty no matter what genre they are. So that blew me away straight away. And then like was mentioned, just the level of detail and everything. I think there's certain parts of the game where I'm not even clued in on yet, and I've got to play a good hour of the game or whatever like that. So I think it's going to be kind of a learning curve for everyone, which is kind of exciting. It's a great thing about a game like this where everyone's kind of fresh slate, clean slate. No one's got like a cutting edge really, and it's going to be kind of I out the patterns. Maybe is there a certain facility that is better to invest in or not, or is there a better driver to maybe look at in the future? I guess time will tell with that kind of thing.
Yeah, and I think you touched on it there as well in terms of like the future. So obviously a lot of your content is kind of very focused around long-term saves when you've done that kind of stuff and development and that. So how important is it to you that you've got that dynamic ability to shape a driver really?
Yeah, I mean, it's just great in general for player to player to have that difference, because I think it means save to save, creator to creator. If you're watching me on YouTube or someone else, you're going to see a slightly different kind of alternative F1 universe, basically in that career mode save. And then, for people at home, just playing with their mates or just comparing to people online on Twitter or whatever, it's going to be very, very different. That dynamic edge gives it just a nice feel as you go on through seasons. I think also for me it's gonna be quite curious. It was mentioned before, like the whole drive is growing dynamically, but then also maybe reducing dynamically as they get older, and then you've got the regens as well. So if you play enough seasons, what kind of wacky regens are you gonna see? You're gonna see like a Lewis Hamilton reborn maybe later in the game, which would be quite interesting.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, I think kind of throwing this on you, but it's based on what you were looking at earlier. You said you're having a quick look to, you've played these kind of style of games before. So what do you think your early days? We're not going to hold you to this, but what do you think your tactics are going to? What do you think your tactics are going to be? Do you think when you're looking at the driver development, the staff development, do you think you're going to focus on something in particular? You're going to really, is it going to be about facilities for you? Where do you think your focus is going to be when it comes to playing the game?
I think majorly at the start of the game. Well, it depends really what team I pick at the start of the game. But I guess if it was maybe, let's say, the second half of the grid, I think you'd be looking at facilities a lot, kind of pouring the money into the car really, less than trying to sign a big name to the team. Get the car in shape, then get the talent in shape afterwards. Maybe if it's the other way around, if you're in a top off team, maybe looking at the drivers. I think it was quite interesting earlier when you guys were talking about the reserve driver and the role they play in free practice sessions of that. It just got me thinking about this dynamic of maybe if you have enough money for it, building up the money to get it, basically, of signing a big name that maybe has experience and kind of can deliver straight for your car, but at the same time build for the future by maybe signing a young shot that you can't quite put in your main team yet, so you kind of sideline him, which is unfortunate, but you try and develop him slowly in FP1s, you know, throughout the season, throughout 2-3 seasons, and maybe there's a crossover point where he's ready to step into the main seat. I think that's quite an interesting thought of, like, you know, having it both ways in a way, trying to go for the big name, but then also building for the future. But I think facility is going to be a huge part if you're lower down the grid, obviously. And then if you have the luxury of being higher up the grid, you can maybe afford to go for the big names. I'm sure there's going to be so many people signing, you know, X driver to X team because they've always had this fantasy. Yes. You know, I'm looking at people, Sebastian Vettel fans. I'm looking at you guys. You know, if you're you know, looking to sign Seb back to Red Bull, for example, or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting you mentioned and this is going to be a proper like fanboy nerdy moment. I apologise for this, but you're mentioning like the idea of like a super talented driver being in your reserve role, which nowadays sounds like a bit like, why would you do that? That's not something that F1 teams do. But I was watching something recently, like I'm my hero when I was growing up was Mika Hakkinen. Like it was my
we should have brought the photo.
Sorry, but yeah, we stumbled into him at Silverstone, which was pretty mad for me. That was pretty crazy, but. Basically, when Mika started out, he had a couple of years in F1 as racing for one of the teams towards the lower end of the grid. But he was seen as a superstar. He was seen as the next big thing. He was already in F1. But then McLaren took him on and signed him, but in a reserve driver role. Yeah. They didn't immediately put him on the F1 grid. They allowed him a year or so to kind of develop, even though he had F1 experience and was seen as this, you know, massive star of the future. So maybe you could do something like that. You could look at a driver that's sort of making their way through the ranks right now as like a real up-and-coming rookie, and if you're a top team, like a Red Bull or Ferrari, and go, okay, well, actually, I've got the budget, I think, to bring you in as like as a reserve driver for that role. So that could be a way to do it. Yeah.
There's a lot of tactics going on. I think that's the thing. So you saying Seb Vettel, Aarava, my dream at the moment is Sebastian Vettel, Mick Schumacher.
Okay.
What a pairing! What a lovely pairing.
I think a lot of people would agree with you.
Yeah, that's my cute pairing. That's my cute grid pairing.
I like that. You have to find a reserve driver then that's German as well.
Yeah, I do.
Could have Hulkenberg in there.
Yes.
Cool. You mentioned it a little bit, Aarav. It all depends on what team you're going to pick first. What are you thinking at the moment? Again, we're not going to hold you to it, but have you got a thought at the moment? Because a lot of people say, you know, they like in games like this, they don't like picking teams or, you know, things like that are at the very top, because you want that challenge of building a team, like a road to glory kind of thing. Is that the kind of approach you think you're going to take?
I think, knowing my viewers, mostly they're going to want me to suffer at the start of the game. They're going to grind as much as possible. So they're going to maybe choose Williams or, you know, Aston Martin or something, you know, towards the back end of the grid maybe. But obviously, you know, it would be tempting to go with McLaren, you know, like a return to glory almost, because they used to be up there. So returning them back up there, of course, managing Lando and, you know, seeing how he does. But like you said, you know, top teams, they can also be a challenge. You know, there's different nuances with top teams. I'm sure, you know, with Ferrari and Red Bull, it'll be trying to outspend each other and keep up with the AI rival. You know, you got Ferrari, obviously. Maybe a lot of people will want to just, you know, manage Ferrari because they want to actually give them a good strategy for once in the race, for example. So there's a lot of different ways to go. I'm just here insulting every F1 team, basically. I'll insult them all equally. You know, all of them. You know, everyone's guilty of it. Everyone thinks they can do a better job than the teams on their TV screen. So I think there'll be a challenge for everyone. But for me personally, knowing my viewers, it'll be like a road to glory from one of the teams towards the back. But I think there's also going to be a bit of fun, I think, down the line, you know, talking about longevity of the game, you know, over a game cycle. I think there'll be longevity of players restarting career mode saves and picking a top team maybe, and then giving themselves scenarios maybe if I want to try and develop a young shot straight away, let's say Red Bull or a Ferrari, and not go for a big name, or we're going to, you know, if you don't like a certain driver or something, we're going to out this driver and try and do something. So I think there's different scenarios players can even make up in their own heads, I think, to keep things interesting for sure.
Yeah, and I think you touched on them there. I've got to say we've got Williams Esports in the chat with a big sad face there, Aaron.
I like the narrative of Williams though, as you were saying, Aaron. Kind of Williams, a team that, you know, have had so much success in the past, and that kind of narrative, that story of taking them back to glory could be super cool. That could be an approach to take with GoTifi. So I would love to do it. I think one of the things you touched on there about there's a lot of people that, you know, we all think we could do it better when we watch it. You know,
and I tell you what, I don't know about you, Chris, but I don't know if you guys have seen it in chat, but we put up our pit stop TikTok where we did a pit stop at Silverstone, the pit stop challenge.
Those are notoriously difficult.
They are notoriously difficult, and we managed a 2.4-second pit stop.
You're really big on this.
I am, because now my toxic trait is thinking that I could be in a pit crew. That's how it works. So
that one pit stop alone is convincing.
That's it.
Let's not talk about the other takes.
There was no other takes. There was literally we did one and done. There was none. I don't know what you're on about. But no, you're right. It's a really interesting thing that you can now kind of take that. They've messed it up there, and you can go, well, actually, could you do it better? And that's what this game provides, and I think that's really awesome to have that dynamic.
Fantastic. I mean, I mean that's pretty much it. It's awesome to be talking to you, Aarava. I know that you're excited for this game. We're excited to kind of get you involved in stuff, have you playing the game and checking it out, and I've been following your stuff for years, so it's super cool to have you on board and talk about this kind of things. Like, any final thoughts, mate? Looking forward. Like we said, just over a month until launch now. F1 Manager 2022. We've shown so much today about the long-term aspect of the game, like development and ratings. Any final thoughts before we sign off?
I just think in general, guys, I think everyone's very, very excited for this game. I think a lot of people are waiting a long time for a licensed F1 management game, having that authenticity, and then also with the level that Frontier brings to it, it's going to be really, really awesome. I saw in chat earlier, actually, talking about scenarios, someone was talking about upgrading Latifi to like 99 on certain aspects. So I think, there's going to be so many different scenarios and fantasies and wacky things that people can do with this game that I don't think even we're thinking about yet, but down the line, they'll, find new ways to have fun with this game from the initial kind of challenge. But yeah, obviously we've only seen a small glimpse, one kind of round of gameplay so far, and the feature videos you guys have been doing has been really, really awesome. So I think just people are hungry for more, and it's, as you said, not long to go. So raring to go, ready to book off time and just get the notepad out, scribble away and start playing this game and try and find the best way to go.
Yeah.
Awesome, man. All right, well, thank you very much for joining us. It's really cool to talk to you. Finally, I feel like we have a proper conversation. Rather than meme tweets.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for joining us, man.
Yeah, appreciate it, guys. Appreciate it.
Cool. Awesome. It was so cool to chat to Aarava, and I know he's been dead excited for the game. And the reason I think we wanted to get him on the show today is because the stuff that we're talking about today around like ratings and development and the long-term narratives that we were talking about, that's a huge thing for a lot of content creators. But it was a great example that he creates some awesome content. So it was awesome to get him on board. I mean, so much information, so much hype.
I know. I always feel out of breath by the time we come to the point where I scroll down and I go, we're going to do an outro. We're going to say goodbye. But I'm always like, woof. But yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot of data. And we stressed it before, but it's all real world data. It's as I think Carlos said, the numbers don't lie.
Yes, absolutely. I like that.
I love that one. But yeah, it's really nice to show you guys a little bit more of we've shown screenshots and stuff, but it's never quite the same as actually digging into the menus and actually looking through things and showing you what everything means. Because even if you just look at a screenshot of numbers, it can be you can kind of take from it. Great, there's loads of depth there, but actually understanding the descriptions and the definitions and where that's all come from, I think, is quite important.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I think. It's just cool to get a bit even more detail out there, and I'm very conscious that we might have some people joining us today who might not have seen some of our previous streams and stuff like that. I'd say the best place to go is check out our YouTube channel. Just look for F1 Manager on YouTube. You'll find our official channel. We've got loads of videos up on there now. Aarava mentioned the feature focus series that we've got, which are our gameplay deals. We try to show you one at the break, but probably try again at the end of the show, and I'm sure we'll get it right this time. But they're a great sort of gameplay deep dive series into key features of the game. We have a behind the scenes series. We released the second episode a few days ago, which featured Zhou Guanyu and Alex Albon, which was super cool.
People power.
Yes, talking about like the face scans in the game and recreating the likenesses of the drivers in the game, which was we've already shown off some stuff like that on the channel. People are excited about that. So
Shall we play out with the video? Shall we play out with the video? Can we do that, Adam? Adam is nodding.
He's nodding. We'll do it again.
We're going to do that. So thank you very much, troops, for joining us. It's been really awesome to chat with you again. Really awesome to see everyone in the chat and kind of chatting away. And I'm sure the conversations and the discourse will go on about ratings until the end of time, and I'm here for it. I'm going to get in the mix and start having these conversations with you. So yeah, thank you very much, everybody. Quick recap, Chris. This is always what you do really well and really quickly.
Oh, for like
what is F1 Manager? Just in case anyone's joined at the end of the stream, what is F1 Manager? When is it coming out?
Yes.
Where can you buy it?
The official F1 management game from us here at Frontier, launching from August 25th on Steam, Epic Games Store, Xbox Series X, Xbox 360, Xbox One. Imagine 360. I'm mad. And we're not doing it on 360. PS5 and PS4. So next gen and current gen and previous gen consoles, and then Steam and Epic Games Store. If you pre-order the digital version, you'll get early access, which means you can play from August 25th. So get your pre-order in, and you'll be able to play it in just over a month's time, which isn't far away at all. There's also details on the website about a 10% discount you can grab across different platforms too. So check out our website for that. And yeah.
And Heather G has kindly pressed exclamation mark pre-order for us there as well to provide us with the pre-order of the game. So yeah, click that link in chat if you want to go and get a little bit more information about the pre-order.
Yeah. Thank you, Elliot, in the chat. He said, "Nice one, Steve and Chris. Thank you very much, mate.
Lovely
thank you,
stuff,
everybody, for your support.
Thank you, folks. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank me.
Yeah.
Thank Adam behind the scenes, pressing all the buttons and doing all the cameras.
Carlos is still behind the cameras, so thank you, Carlos.
Where's Carlos? Oh, hello, Carlos.
Carlos
is there. I couldn't see him behind the camera. Yes, thank you very much, Carlos. Thank you to all of our moderators and everybody in chat as well. And we will see you shortly for more.
Yeah. Cheers. See you.
Thank you, folks. Bye-bye. Play us out, Adam.
If you're standing still in Formula One, you're falling behind. All team bosses in F1 must find ways to constantly evolve and expand their operations, from improving facilities back at HQ to securing new sources of income. Investing in your team and providing your staff with an environment primed for success is vital in F1 Manager 2022.
The facilities you control are split across 3 areas: car development, staff, and operations. Each has a number of facilities that can be built and a running monthly cost. Car development facilities include buildings and tools that are paramount to designing an F1 car, from the design center to your wind tunnel. Staff facilities, like a scouting department and a race simulator for drivers, affect employee performance. Operations facilities contribute to cash flow and team attractiveness via the likes of hospitality and tour centers. Every facility can be upgraded multiple times, boosting its effectiveness. Upgrading your design center could increase your capacity for engineers, whilst improving your site's helipad can increase sponsor payouts. Refurbishing facilities will also be key, ensuring they're providing maximum benefit to your team. Do you invest heavily in staff facilities to maximize their potential, or put more budget towards car development and gain an advantage in part design? Your funds will decrease as a season goes on, so you will need to make tough decisions on where your money goes. Managing sponsorships will play a big role in keeping your finances in the black. The value of the sponsorship offers you receive will be dictated by the status of your team. At the start of a new season, you'll control the terms of your deals and obligations and adjust sponsor targets for each race weekend. Whilst this generates income, sponsor events can negatively affect areas of your team. It's up to you to find the balance of sourcing cash whilst not interfering too much with day-to-day operations. Looking after your budget will go a long way to keeping the board happy. Be ready for their mid-season and end-of-season reviews, where your performance will be assessed and targets will be set. Fail to hit them, and you may find yourself unemployed. When it comes to success in Formula One, progression away from the track is often as important as performance on it. Expand your operations, keep the revenue flowing, and impress the board to give yourself the best chance of glory in F1 Manager 2022.